Today is Tuesday, February 7, 2023. I call this regular meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Mayor Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. Please rise, place your right hand at your heart and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Menchaca is attended tonight's meeting by phone. Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Ding,
Here.
Vice Mayor Harrington,
Here.
Councilmember Chan,
Here.
Councilmember Menchaca, Councilmember Wu.
Here. Closing section report. Our city attorney will now give the closing section report from the special meeting held on January 26, 2023.
Sure. The City Council met in closed session at a special meeting for the identified purpose of discussing potential threat to public facilities pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. The City Council received a report from the police chief and the fire chief. No reportable action took place. Mr. Mayor, that concludes the report.
Thank you. We will now have the same announcement from our chief city clerk.
Tonight's meeting is live streamed on Cable Channel 3 and our online platforms. If you wish to address the City Council during tonight's meeting, we request that you please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk. When speaking, please state your name for the record. If you wish to be added to the distribution list to receive City Council agendas, please email your request to cityclerk@sgch.org.
First one, approve the agenda order. Are there any objection to the agenda order? Here none, the agenda order is approved. Next item, please.
Presentation for Black History Month. Mayor Ding will make the presentation.
Yes, okay. February, it's Black History Month. Okay, therefore, much of the city San Gabriel honor, strength, and distinction can be attributed to the diversity of the culture and the tradition they are celebrated by our residents. African Americans have played a significant role in the history of our nation and the California economic, cultural, spiritual, and the political development, while working tirelessly to promote their culture and history. And as a result of their determination, hard work, and perseverance, African Americans have made a valuable and lasting contribution to our community and our state, achieving exceptional success in all aspects of the social, including business, education, political, science, and arts. And where there's in the 1976, Black History Month was formally adopted to honor and affirm the importance of the Black history throughout our American experience. And it's full of the individual who took us stance against prejudice, advanced the cause of the civil rights, strengthened family, communities, and our nation. And all Americans are encouraged to reflect on past success and the challenge of African American and look to future to improve society so that we live up to the idea of the freedom, equity, and justice. And I, Tony Dean, Mayor of the City of San Gabriel, California, on behalf of the City Council, Vice Mayor John Harrington, Council Member Denise Menchaca, Eric L. Chen, and John Wu. do hear proclamation February 2023 as a Black Historical Month in the city of San Gabriel, and I invite everyone to recognize this month to celebrate the diversity and the character of our community, and highlight the importance of the sharing our cultural customs and the traditional with the those around us. I urge the citizens of the San Gabriel to join me in this special observance. Thank you. Next item, please.
Public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the City Council on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the San Gabriel City Council. If you wish to address the council, please fill out a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk. Mr. Mayor, we do have a comment received by email.
Okay.
Comes to us from Chastity Jennings Nunez, San Gabriel resident and here Commission Chair, and reads as follows. To the City Council and residents, while the Black population in San Gabriel is small, comprising less than 2% of residents, it is important to recognize and celebrate the historical and ongoing contributions of African Americans to the prosperity and growth of our nation. The theme of Black History Month 2023 is Black Resistance. From enslaved Africans to an elected President of the United States, Black Americans have continued to make a way out of no way, forging their own path to success in every aspect and in every area of society. I am encouraged that San Gabriel has embraced the celebration of Black History Month and hope to see the opportunities and spaces for education, acknowledgement, and celebration grow in the future. And I have no additional speaker cards.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine, and recommendations will be approved in one motion unless a member of the City Council or public requests separate discussion. We have not received requests from the public to pull any items.
Would any council member like to pull any item for separate discussion? Yes. Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion for the items? So I make a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. The motion made by Councilmember Wu and second by the Vice Mayor Harrington. Clerk, please take the roll call vote.
Councilmember Chan,
Yep, yes.
Councilmember Menchaca, Councilmember Wu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Little bit difference. Okay, and the next item, please.
We have no public hearing or continued business this evening. Our next item is new business item A, presentation and acceptance of the annual comprehensive financial report and other audit reports for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2022. Assistant Finance Director Tang will make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. I am Linda Tang, Assistant Finance Director for the City of San Gabriel. Tonight, it is my pleasure to present to you our annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year ended June 30, 2022. The City Fiscal Sustainability Policy, which was adopted by the City Council in May of 2019, requires that the annual comprehensive financial report, or ACFR for short, be formally submitted to the City Council on an annual basis with the presence of our city auditor. Representing the city's audit firm of Moss, Levy, and Hartsenheim is our audit manager, Terry Robertson. In tonight's presentation, we will review the result of the audit, as well as conduct an analysis of the financial results for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2022. The city auditors were hired through a competitive process in April of 2020. They have completed our audit for the city for fiscal year ending June 30, 2020, 2021, and 2022. The auditors have provided two reports. First is the independent auditor's report, which provide an opinion on the fair presentation of the city's annual comprehensive financial report, as well as the scope of the audit. Second is an agreed-upon procedure report over the city's calculation of the annual appropriation limit, or GAN limit for short. At a later time, the auditors will complete other letters and report, including the federal single audit report for federal grants. As mentioned, the independent auditor's report defines the scope, responsibility, and process of the audit. Most importantly, the audit report provides the auditor's opinion on the fair presentation of our financial statement. I am happy to report the auditors issued a clean opinion of the fair presentation of our financial statement. In regards to the report on the city's calculations of the appropriation limit, the auditor's verification of the city's calculation on the appropriation limit reported no exceptions. At this time, I would like to call up Terry Robertson from Moss Levy and Hartsenheim to talk about the audit.
Hello, I'm Terry Robertson with Moss Levy and Hartsenheim. As indicated, I am the manager on your audit. This year, we had this was our third year on the engagement. It was pretty straightforward. There was no issues as we went through the audit. As noted, we gave you a clean opinion. So, in years past, you'd had your general fund, your fund balance was somewhat of an issue. But this year, you actually improved it so much that that emphasis was actually removed from the report. Outstanding issue is simply your single audit that is not yet completed. That is due by the 31st of March, although we anticipate finishing a little sooner than that. There were no findings in the audit work that we've done, and with the last little bit we need to finish with the single audit, we're not anticipating any findings this year as well. For the GAN limit, as usual, you got your agreed upon procedures. This is something you get every year. You fell under the GAN limit as required by state law, and that's pretty much, there was no exceptions noted during that process. Are there any questions for us?
Councilmember Chen.
Yeah, just for benefit of the audience, could you explain just real quickly the difference between the full audit and the single audit, and how that works and how they work together?
Okay.
Thanks.
Your full audit, your annual financial report, is based upon basically governmental auditing standards and general accounting principles in the United States. So that's basically reporting the actual numbers related to your individual funds, how each of your funds are doing. So each of those funds will give you basically where you stood as of June 30th, 2022. There's an additional report in the comprehensive report in which we basically take all your individual funds and we convert you to a full accrual basis entity. So all of your debt, such as if you have any bonds, or if you had a pension bond, or you issued any kind of leases, those will all show up there, showing those debts. So that basically shows where you are at any given time. The single audit is based upon federal requirements. So that's only based upon expenditures of federal expenditures during your fiscal year. It doesn't matter when you receive the revenue. It's a matter of when you've expended the grant funds, even if they have not yet get paid. So that's more a compliance report than a results report. So basically that's saying the single audit will say whether or not you complied with the various requirements of the federal programs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Before moving on to the analysis of the financial result, I do want to point out that the prior year emphasis of matters paragraph, which was due to the negative fund balance issue in the past of the city, have been entirely removed. So that is a highlight of, certainly a good highlight in our financial statement for fiscal year June 30, 2022. We're moving forward to the analysis of the financial result. This is a big picture. The slide summarizes the revenue, expenditure, and net change in fund balance for general fund, which is the city's main operating fund. We started off the fiscal year with $5.5 million in general fund balance. For the fiscal year ended June 30, 2022, the general fund had revenue and transfer in of $57,226,000. Expenditure and transfer out of $46,845,000, which resulted in a positive net change in fund balance of $10,381,000. This is one of the highlights for the year. With the large net change in fund balance and the beginning fund balance of $5.5 million, the general fund ending fund balance as of June 30, 2022 was $15,935,000. This is the fourth year in a row the city has achieved positive net change in fund balance. As mentioned in the previous slide, the general fund ended the year with a positive fund balance of $15.935 million. Out of this fund balance, about $5.88 million is restricted on its use to serve as the public works loan, as a security for the public works loan. The remaining $10.06 million of fund balance is unassigned and is considered general fund reserve. This is the first time since June 30, 2015, that the city has had a positive unassigned fund balance. Additionally, the unassigned fund balance total of $10.06 million establishes a percentage reserve level of 21.5%. This exceeds the city's general fund reserve goal to have unassigned fund balance equal to or greater than 17% of total expenditures. Visually, you can see below in the line chart, since 2017-18, the fund balance has consistently been improving, with fiscal year 21-22 meeting our fund balance reserve goal. We can continue on with a little bit more detail, starting with revenue. This slide provides an analysis of revenue by major category and compares the current amount in fiscal year 21-22 versus the prior year amount in fiscal year 2021. Overall, revenue increased by $9.25 million from the prior year. The increase was driven by increases in taxes, charges for service, and intergovernmental revenue. As you can see, starting from the top, taxes have an increase of $4.55 million. This includes increases from sales tax, Measure SG, transient occupancy tax, and utility users tax. Intergovernmental revenue increase of $1.98 million were mainly from our MTA, Prop A exchange, and the remaining recognition of our ARPA fund. Charges for service increase of approximately $2 million are due to development-related fees that increases during the year, and some recovery from certainly COVID-19 collection that we received. In other categories, smaller increases, as you can see, from fine and forfeiture, license and permit, investment income, others, and capital lease. This slide provides an analysis of the revenue line item that has significant changes from year to year. ARPA funding have an increase of $2.35 million. Again, we're recognizing the final payment of this federal fund. Taxes such as Measure SG, transient occupancy tax, state sales tax, and even utility users tax, as mentioned, we're really recovery from COVID-19 back to a more normal amount in revenue received. Pass-through plan check and plan checking fees are directly related to development activity that's going on in the city. Others line items that have increased, such as we have workers' comp reimbursement, overnight parking permits, property tax. Those are due to assessed value increase, and overnight is just returning to a full year of enforcement. The only line item that we have shown there on the chart as a net decrease of $1,030,000 is our federal and state reimbursement. This is due to a prior year in 2021. We have experienced, probably you may remember, but it may not, that earlier in that fiscal year, the city have experienced, or the state have experienced a tremendous wildfire season. Therefore, there is a large sum in that $1.4 million you see in fiscal year 2021 due to Cal OES reimbursement for our fire strike team. Other than that, we recognize the CARES Act funding that is in that federal state reimbursement. In addition, we have provided services to, our PD have provided services to Cal State LA for their vaccination clinic. So all of those reimbursement were recognized in this federal and state reimbursement line item in fiscal year 2020 and 2021. So there wasn't the same kind of services provided for fiscal year 21-22. Moving on to expenditure. This slide provides analysis of the general fund expenditure by department or function and compare it to the prior year amount. Overall, the general fund expenditures were higher by $6.17 million. The primary drivers of the increase were personnel costs, increases from pass-through plan check costs, and the purchase of the fire apparatus. Additionally, the transfer from general fund to Mission Playhouse increased by $100,000 from $250,000 to $350,000. You will see for the different category of general government, there is a decrease of $890,000. This is due to retiree health care that was reallocated to the respective department per council request from prior year. Because previously, retiree health care was only accounted for in non-departmental. Starting in fiscal year 21-22, we have had it allocated out to the respective department. Therefore, you see a net decrease of $890,000. And in turns, all the other public safety, community development, community services, public works, all see an increase in personnel costs and retiree health care. This slide represents the change and current balance of the city's two largest liabilities, pension and other post-employment benefit liabilities. As of June 30, 2022, the city's net pension liability decreased by $24.27 million, primarily due to the pension plan's investment return that exceeds its actuarial assumption. For our OPEB liability, the city net liability decreased by $6.56 million, primarily due to an increased assumed discount rate. This slide right here is a summary that analyzes the other 5 major funds of the city, as well as the roll-up balance of 15 other non-major special revenue funds. Starting from the top, you can see the retirement tax fund had an increase of $150,000, giving the fund balance at June 30, 2022 of $701,000. This fund is restricted to pay for retirement-related expenditure only. Our development impact fees fund got an increase of $5.7 million with an ending balance of $11.56 million. And this fund is restricted to pay for city facility improvements. Measure R has a small increase of $14,000, giving a fund balance of $634,000. This fund is primarily restricted for transportation projects. Our other grant fund have an increase of 433,000, giving a balance of 388,000. This accounts for various federal, state, and county grants that the city receives. Our sewer assessment fund had an 804,000 increase and with an ending balance of 7.86 million. And this fund here is restricted to a repair and replacement of the city sewer system. The remaining 15 special revenue funds, which account for various specific purpose, have a combined fund balance of 7.1 million. Some of the example activities that all of these 15 special revenues include transportation, street construction, air quality, Mission Playhouse, even community services, CDBG. So all of those are all combined together in this non-major other governmental fund line. For the 32nd year in a row, the city received a Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA for short. We have submitted the June 30, 2022 to the GFOA for consideration of the 33rd Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting. With this concludes my presentation. Questions or comments?
Does any council member have a factual question for the staff to clarify the report? Okay, Councilmember Wu.
Thank you, Mayor Dean. A quick question is about the OPEB. OPEB obligations, because we have already sunsetted the benefits, which is 20 years or more, and we will be no longer providing them the lifetime. So how many years do you think that will be showing a very dramatic numbers that showing we have the obligation or liability decrease on the report?
Sure. I can't exactly tell you exactly how many years, although that's going to be slow. Again, that is effective current year. However, it takes time for the turnover. That means this is for new hired only. And the ones who are already in the system, it goes with our old plan. So only the new hired will be subject to the new OPEB plans that we have here, which is on PEMCA rates. So every year we certainly do an actuarial report. The actuarial will take all our plans to certainly calculate and have their assumptions. So I cannot exactly tell you or, to confirm how many years that may be. It may take a while. I have to say it won't be immediate. Hopefully that answers your questions.
Well, thank you.
It will definitely impact it for future, though. So in the long run, it will definitely decrease our liability.
The city manager.
I would add, and that was a perfect response. The only thing I would add would be there was major pension reform that happened at the state back in 2012, 2013, and we are now just seeing the effects of that in our pension costs. So I think a parallel can be drawn that it's going to be at least 10 years before we're going to see those effects on our valuation, and it will be probably 15 or more years before our costs start to go down, because that's right, at least 15 or more years. But you're making a good decision now that will set us up for the future. But I wouldn't expect that you'll see it until the next 10 or 15 years.
Mayor, this is Councilwoman Denise Menchaca. I had a follow-up to Mark's and Councilmember Wu's comments. Yeah, real quick.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to ask the city manager, Mark, when is the pension agenda item going to be discussed? I know we've gone back and forth over the years discussing different strategies. I thought we were going to bring it to the council to have a full discussion on the plans going forward.
Thank you, Councilwoman Menchaca. At this point, we were given direction, or not at this point, the last time we had that discussion, we were given direction to work with our financial consultants and then bring an item back in the future when it makes more sense. And with interest rates being what they are, and with us not having a bond rating, that won't happen, I'm guessing, for at least 6 to 9 months. If the council wants a full discussion between now and then, we're more than happy to facilitate that. But at this point, we are working on using our retirement tax to hopefully start to pay that down faster than our payments are required. So we're kind of self-funding our own reform, so to speak. I
Yes,
hope
it
that
does.
answers your
Thank you.
question.
So, the Councilmember Menchaca, you have more
I do
question?
not, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. So, Vice Mayor Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. As long as we're on that slide, Linda, for the pension liability, it says that you exceeded the actuarial assumption. Were there any changes in the assumption, or is it the same assumption we've had for?
The assumptions normally do changes from year to year. They normally would get our census data from CalPERS, and from there, it's life expectancy or how our plan goes. There's always new assumption possibly, and even on rate. I'm thinking something that draws your attention to that, or feels like there's a big, huge changes, mainly.
Usually it goes up a lot, not down a lot.
Right. Certainly, it's because the earnings that they have experienced up to June 30, 2021 have exceedingly exceed their expectation.
So the up-to-date would probably be a lot different, because there's been some pretty good changes from June to
Correct.
now.
So you actually should absolutely see a big net changes there, because the experience was completely unexpected.
Yeah, that was a pivot point, I think,
Right.
right after that.
Yes, totally understand. That's why we do see the number change, the big number changes here. And I do want to say that all of you may read in your report, your deferred outflow, inflow, they're recognized over a period of 5 years for these earnings that are earned greater than expected. So you may be seeing the same kind of a high changes in future years, but we can't say for sure. But certainly, it will continue for probably a few years in recognition.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I would add as well that because of the market that we've experienced over the past 6 months and what we're seeing for the rest of this year, you're likely to see the opposite numbers when we present this report next year, meaning that this incredible return that happened up till June 30th of 2022 is going to be wiped out, and we're going to be back down to probably that $50 or $60 million funding level for our pensions that we were at prior to those gains. The good news, or slightly good news to that, is, as Linda mentioned, the assumptions changed because we had such a good return last year. PERS lowered their expected rate of return, and so we don't have to achieve those higher returns in the future in order to balance that out. It's a long-term investment strategy, but I do want to let the council and the community know that these highs and lows happen every year, and we shouldn't get too concerned about them, but next year is going to be a bad year.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment. I think we see this and we take it with a grain of salt because it's lagging information. It's not really current. It's as of the snapshot when this was taken. So just want to make sure we don't try and be too up on this or too down when it gets high. We just got to really I've been through a few of these, so I've seen some really good ones and some really bad ones. So.
Correct. And just to make it clear, certainly the actuarial is of measurement date of June 30, 2021.
June 30, 2021. That's
Correct.
based on that figure,
That is
right?
correct.
Not the
Not June
It lags quite a
2022.
bit, yeah.
2 years, almost
It's
1.5
lagged by a
years
year.
ago. Okay.
So the market has changed since then.
That is correct.
So maybe just add on same question. Is it possible you can have maybe for the future meeting give it to us, council member, it's for the maybe last 5 years or 7 years, the up and down. So maybe it's really
Okay.
help, yeah.
You would like to see the changes? in
Yeah, you see the
liability from
change,
year to
so,
year?
yeah, then we can,
Uh-huh.
I think the public needed to know, they easy to explain to them because the market value volatility, you know, so
Certainly.
sometimes it's going up, sometimes it's going down, right? It's
Correct.
based on, okay.
We will have that included in future year presentation.
Okay, thank you, because this one, otherwise, we expecting that like 2 years ago, maybe it's a worst case, right? It's maybe next year, maybe up to, it's lucky maybe up to the 1.5 million, the 15 million, is that right? Yeah, but maybe 30 million, right? You never know, it's based on, yeah, all the other way. Maybe it's still going down, right? Okay, all right, that's good news. Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay.
Mayor, if you don't mind, can I have one more?
Oh, it's Councilmember Wu.
Yes. Well, but Linda, thank you so much again for the great report, and so happy to hear that we are clear. And so about the restricted funds, that balance of 5 million, is a 58 million, 5 million. Well, the public works loan requires the city to maintain a cash deposit, and it shows that there is a decrease, 260,000, and that will be there will be like an annual basis. Every year we will just decrease 260.
That is correct, because the 260,000 is our principal payment.
So that is a portion of like it's a loan, right? This
Right.
is we are paying the interest and principal.
That is correct, but certainly for this restricted, it is on the principal amount that is outstanding.
So this is a 1% loan. Is that like the fixed rate, or there will be like adjustable for how many years?
I think it's supposed to be fixed until 2025, where there can be a change in rate.
Then what happened after 2025? That means that will be adjustable because since these days that we have the interest rates goes up. So does that mean after 2025, if we do not pay off the loan, then we are going to pay more on the interest on this restricted loan interest?
It's actually a little bit confusing, but the end result is that we will always pay 1% for that loan. And the reason for that is the way the loan works, if we roll it over at 2025 and then again in 2030, our loan amount is 1% more than the amount of the CD that we take out in that same value. So let's say 2025, we have an outstanding balance of 5 million. Whatever the CD rates are at that time, Citizens Business Bank will give us a CD at, let's say it's 4% like it is now. We would have a CD at 4% and then a loan at 5%. So the net effect will always be 1% for us. I think as you asked that great question, Councilwoman Menchaca's question reminds me that it may be what she was thinking about, that we were going to bring back a discussion in the near future. And in March, we'll do a full presentation. Our finance director, Will Kaholakula, is going to be giving a full presentation on our recommendation on whether to pay off that loan now and just take it off of our books, or whether we continue to roll it over and pay that 1%. Short answer to your very short question, we'll always pay 1% for that loan as long as we continue to roll it over.
So disregard that how the interest rate goes up, there will be only 1% difference.
The delta, the margin, however you want to describe that, is going to be always 1%.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
So for city costs, just 1% for this loan, right? Okay. Okay. So, but like Mark said, it will be for the future discussion for that one. Yeah. Okay. And Chief City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
No comment for this item, Mayor.
Okay. It's now time for the council discussion. Who would like to start it?
Mayor, we just need after a council discussion, we just need a motion to receive and file so that we
Okay.
show for the record that it was
Okay.
received and filed.
Okay. No further okay. All right.
I'll move to receive and file.
The motion made by.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Menchaca and the second by Councilmember Wu. We still need a vote, right? Or we don't need a vote? We need, okay. Clerk, please take the roll call vote.
Councilmember Chan,
Yes.
Aye.
Councilmember Menchaca. Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Harrington.
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, next item, please.
Item B, discussion regarding translation of agendas and hearing notices for Design Review Commission, Planning Commission, and the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resources Commission. Community Development Director Cervantes will make the presentation.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Aldo Cervantes, Community Development Director for the City of San Gabriel. This item comes before you this evening as a discussion regarding translation services for our Design Review Commission, our Planning Commission, as well as our Historic Preservation and Cultural Resources Commission. We're on slide 2. At the moment, only the City Council meetings and the HEAR Commission meetings are provided with translated agendas. The agendas are translated from English to Chinese, Spanish, and Vietnamese. These agendas are also then posted on our city website and posted at various locations throughout the city. To provide such a service, the city allocates fundings for this program, and currently, as of November of last year to current date, the expenditure is around $23,000. We're on slide 3. And so this slide shows a more detailed breakdown of the actual cost per translation for each language as far as our current process with the City Council Translation Services. And slide 4 shows the analytics regarding the current process for translation of City Council agendas. This data comes from our city's website, and it shows the number of clicks to the links for our various translated documents or agendas. As you can see, the English agendas for these various dates or months show a higher activity, whereas the translated agendas show very little activity as far as clicking on those links. In slide 5, a translation service similar to that of the City Council process would be a new process for our department. The department currently oversees and manages 3 commissions, Design Review, Planning Commission, and Historic Preservation and Cultural Resources Commission. Design Review and Planning Commission have a higher frequency of noticing and agenda postings. Each project on an agenda receives a public hearing notice, which is then published in our city's, or in the newspaper, along with the agendas. The notices are also mailed to the surrounding properties. And in most cases, the agendas will have multiple projects, each requiring, as I mentioned, separate public hearing notices for each project. And so depending on the size of the agenda, the cost will certainly vary when it comes to the publication fees that are provided by our newspaper. Other things to take into consideration are the cost for postage, as we also mail the notices to the surrounding properties. Currently, our planning fees, in terms of how we provide cost recovery, our planning fees do help absorb the cost for staff time in needing to manage the noticing and agenda process. Adding a new translation services or service, either now or at the fiscal year, will certainly need a funding source for this activity or service. And slide 6. To help determine the fiscal impact to the department and the city, we used the month of October of 2022 in terms of Design Review and Planning Commission agendas. Based on the number of projects at that month or during those agendas for October, it was determined that if we were to translate those agendas and those notices, the fiscal impact would have been for that month about $2,600. And so on an annual basis, if we're looking at sort of a consistent number across the board, we're looking at a fiscal impact of the upwards of about $30,000 a year. And so with slide 7, we'll go over a couple of options for the council to consider. The first one being that the council may consider directing staff to proceed with a translation service similar to that of the City Council, or the one that mirrors the City Council process. This option would require an appropriation of funds for the new service, or we can certainly wait for the fiscal year to budget for this service. The second option includes maintaining our current process, which is an English-only agenda and notice, but to include on the agenda and the notices very specific language or instructions that allow the reader to request a translated document via whether it's an agenda, a public hearing notice, or any document that's in that packet for that month. So this will make it a low-cost process. Option 2 would make it a low-cost process and also would be a case-by-case basis and upon request by the public. And also to mention, this would not be an unusual task for the city, as we do a very similar process where we instruct the public through our agendas in the case they need a reasonable accommodation for entering our facilities. And so with that said, staff recommends the City Council discuss this matter, but at the moment, staff is recommending against looking at a translation services for Design Review, Planning Commission, and the Historic Preservation Commission. Of course, the council can elect to go with option 1, which is to fund the new service, but at this point, given the cost associated with this program, as well as the workload associated with the system or program, we're recommending against going through this system at the moment. So with that said, I open for questions.
Does any council member have the factual question for staff to clarify the report? Councilmember Wu?
Thank you, Mayor Dean. Thank you, Aldo, for the presentation. Regarding the translation, it's not only on paper, but as we have a meeting with the tenants, especially from the Focus Plaza twice, then we actually have hired a translator, the interpreter. So for those kind of funds, is that like a special fund from somewhere? Because we were not, have a budget for that before. So, I mean, if we are we choose the option 2, what about the cost? Is that case by case? If we need a translator in person and translate for those people who has a public comment, can we just do it case by case on option 2?
Well, and City Clerk's office chime in if you feel here, but I know that for example, for the City Clerk's office, there is a fund that's available in case we need to translate, whether it's documents or have a translator present at meetings. So there is a current fund for that system. In my staff reports, I noted that at least in my department, I don't have the funding for translation services, so we would need to look at adding that if we're going to go down this path. But currently, for the City Clerk's office, we do have a fund for that.
So your option 2 is we add a disclosure sentence that in the different language, in Mandarin, Vietnamese, or other language, and telling them that they have the right to request a translation service from the city.
That's correct. That's the idea behind option 2.
And will we indicate this is from the planning, this is from the design review, or will we tell them a brief sentence, this is about what issues?
Yeah, and so the intent, and we haven't really drafted that language, that will be phase 2. The intent is to inform the public through our various translations to educate them as to what the project is about in a very short summary form. But yes, the intention is to do exactly that, although we still need to draft the language.
So the physical impact about a budget, does that include the newspaper? When we have something to announce, not only the meeting, but sometimes it's like for example, commissioners selections, we are open to appoint we are going to appoint a new commissioner. So for those kind of things, do we have a system, or we will just post publish on the newspaper? And where's the cost coming from?
Well, I can certainly speak for our department, and the City Clerk can speak, I think, to answer that specific question. But we do have a funding source that allows for us to publish in the newspaper, whether it's in our agendas for DRC or Planning Commission, as well as publication of those notices for each specific project. Now, if the city clerk would like to, jump on that, I think your specific question is related to their funding.
But what about the public hearing? Do we have a public hearing things published on the newspaper?
Yes, so the requirement by law is to publish not only the agenda, but also to publish the notice for each project in the newspaper as well.
So far, that is only, the newspaper is in English, not in other languages.
For our department, yes, it's only in English at the moment.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Chief City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Mr. Mayor, we do have one comment received by email. It comes to us from Dr. Jennings Nunez, Chair of the HERE Commission, and reads as follows. To the City Council, as we continue to see daily attempts by various political factions and private organizations to limit the civic participation of marginalized and minority groups, I would hope that San Gabriel will remain vigilant and committed to engaging all of its residents in the governing process. The opportunity to communicate and relay information is basic to one's ability to access services, take advantage of opportunities in an equitable manner, and supports the racially and ethnically diverse community that makes up San Gabriel. That the number of clicks on the past City Council and HERE Commission agendas, both in English and other languages, is extremely small compared to the population of residents, says more about the efforts to make sure that our residents are aware of this feature than it does about the desire of residents to participate in their governing. The translations were instituted, but there was never a committed campaign by the city to make residents aware of these translations. This needs to happen before any reliance on data concerning the number of clicks. As the October 4 and November 1st meetings clearly demonstrated, when residents are aware of issues that directly affect them, they will earnestly participate in the process. They will only be aware of issues if the information is available in a manner they understand. Those meetings also showed that to participate effectively, accommodations need to be made to allow residents to utilize their primary language. It is the democratic government's responsibility, if it truly desires to represent its constituents, to provide reasonable ways to promote and encourage participation. Please continue in the direction of progress and inclusion and vote to provide translation of all Commission and City Council agendas and to commit to a marketing campaign to inform the residents of San Gabriel of this detail. That concludes the comments.
Thank you. So, no more public comments, right? Okay. It's now time for the council discussion. Who would like to start it?
Mayor, I'll start.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember
Thank you.
Menchak.
I think,
Please.
hopefully Mark could remind me, but I believe this translation process began between the council and the HERE Commission. It was recommended. But Mark, is there any other city that does this type of translation?
Thank you, Councilwoman Menchaca. The process started actually after the killing of George Floyd, and we had a subcommittee to start the HERE Commission. I think as part of that, recommended to council that the translation start. It was the subcommittee who did that. And then, yes, the HERE Commission jumped on board and made sure that that was part of their work plan. To answer your question about other cities, I know of several other cities that do the sort of boilerplate text that Aldo talked about, of having those on the top of agendas or public hearing notices in several languages. And they basically say, you know, this is our council agenda. Here's how you can provide comment. If you need help with translation, contact the city clerk's office, or for project kinds of documents, contact the planner or the planning department. I do not know of any other cities that provide translation of the agendas in full or any other documents, except if it's a very sensitive item that happens to affect a certain community or a certain demographic in the city, but that is very, very rare. So the short answer is I don't know of other cities that are doing this right now. We could do full research to answer that question, but I'm confident to say nobody else in the San Gabriel Valley at least
Okay,
does that right now.
thank you. You know, the analytics that was shown, the slide with the analytics, I think is very telling that even though we have a worthy goal here, we want more engagement. Translation, as we have been doing for almost a year, or over a year, I think it was November of 2021, isn't working. And it is $23,000. I think it's very hard for us to justify spending that amount of money with so little engagement. And so what I would like my colleagues to consider, oh, and also the 23K doesn't include staff time. So there's also staff time involved. But I think there's better ways to communicate than just translation. I do agree the boiler text, that's, you know, step one. I think I would like to take it back or ask the HEAR Commission to look at this a little bit more and come up with other ideas of doing some outreach. Something like for the API community, maybe something in the World Journal should be posted. Maybe we can talk to our API partners, whether it's AYC or the Chinatown Services, but there could be better ways, there has to be better ways to seek engagement, not just because we have an issue like Focus Plaza. We need to find ways that will really bring people in. I also wanted to mention maybe social media, a little bit more on the social media. I know on the English version, Clara and her team, they put a real nice, it's just a one pager and it says, you know, these are some of the highlights from the agenda, and it's short and concise, very easy for anyone to look at, maybe using those and translating them and posting them, whether again, it's on WeChat or WhatsApp or whatever the case may be. But those are really much more inviting than translating, you know, pages of our agenda, even though it's just the top levels, not the detail. I think people just want to get to the point. They might not be as excited about the consent agendas. They might not be as excited some of our proclamations, but I think if you hit the key items, that could be a better draw. Let's see, again, I do like option 2, but I think we can continue to have this conversation. And I thought about the HEAR Commission would be a good step. Maybe staff, based on your experience, maybe Sharon's department, our city clerk's office, you know, what better ways are there to do this outreach and be much more effective and not spend the 23K, because I think that money could be spent in so many other ways. I know the HEAR Commission would love to have a budget. Historical also would like to have a budget, using some of that money for those commissions instead. But I think this is a conversation that we need to continue to have. I'm proud that the city decided back in 2021 to do the translations, but it's not working. So I'd like my colleagues again for us to have a discussion and see if there's better ways. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Chen.
Yeah, after considering this, and thank you, Aldo, for your presentation, I think I agree with my colleague, Councilmember Menchaca, that I would support option 2. That's what I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Hu.
Thank you, Mayor Dean. Yeah, that is one of my concerns. Well, we have a very low clicking rate, but we want to make sure any group of living in our community, all our information will be really accessible to everyone. So, but also I know that our city's website is renovating right now. We are in a process of renovating the city's website, improving. So that will be like in different languages. I don't know if that is correct, that we will be showing different language interface in the future. That it will be like in Vietnamese, Chinese, simplified Chinese, English. If we will be having those, and then we have the meeting agenda and even the public hearing notice that translate that in that language on that specific language page. That can really help us to reach out to the community and increase the clicking rate. So at this moment, I think that we should really remain whatever we have right now, because that is, people still will be read the agenda is not necessarily by clicking, but it could be distributed by hands. But for the public hearing, for example, we have the development project. I believe the cost that we should really add it to those developers that who will be having construction, because they should be paying out those postage note, make sure that the notice delivered to all people that will be affected, radius within like 500 square feet. So I would say that if we will move to the option 1, and there will be a cost to the city, then we should really have the cost that paid by the applicant, that whoever needs to have the development, projects. Otherwise, I think number 2 will be a good transitional process. We can just put that for now, just send a notice and telling them a word. They have the right to request the translation service through the city. Then we can improve that later on.
Mayor, can I just clarify one of the comments that Councilmember Wu made? I just want to make sure that the council is on the same page and that the community is aware. We're planning on including a request for a budget to upgrade our website as part of this coming agenda. There was not an intent to have translated pages on that website, but to make sure that everything will work with Google Translate, so that when somebody clicks on that Google Translate button, it has the text that can be translated pretty well into other languages. But with the frequency that we update our web pages and the need to put new information on there, I think it would be, the cost will be prohibitive to do that translated versions every time we updated one of our web pages. So the majority would be in English. And then we would look at being able to somehow put a button on our agendas to do a Google Translate of that PDF, but it would not be a full translation of our website. That's the intent at this point. That could be something that, if council desires, we could come back with a proposal for that in the future, but I don't know of cities that translate their full websites into other languages.
The Vice Mayor Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree that it's a noble goal to try and engage everybody, but there also has to be some value there. And what are we spending for what are we getting? And yeah, the data may be pretty new, but it's also pretty telling. I don't see a huge number of engagement for the amount of money we're spending on that. I think there are some better ways, and I think it might be a good idea for staff to figure out how can we engage everybody? How can we do a better value and better reach? Because what I'm seeing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Aldo, these are people that specifically click on the translated page, not using Google Translate to translate. So for example, if I went into the English language agenda and I pressed Google Translate, it automatically translates it.
Yeah.
Not accurate, but it automatically does it.
Well, these clicks represent actual public members of the public actually clicking on the link for that specific agenda.
A translated agenda in the language that we paid for.
Correct.
So if I go right now to the website and I click on the English language version, and I click translate, there's about 50 options. I can translate it into anything. It's not going to be as good, obviously, but as far as communications, it's 90%, 95%, and it doesn't cost us anything.
I would just say that works for the website. It doesn't work for PDF files right now.
Correct.
So we would have to modify the agendas, the way we put those out, so that somebody could modify those, or they could copy and paste those into a translation software.
Yeah, and Adobe has plugins for that, just so you know. It's not expensive at all. I mean, that's something we could easily fix on the website. Because Google won't handle the Adobe documents, but Adobe will. It's a plugin.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, because I mean, my thing is also I think Councilmember Wu's concern is when we have projects affecting the public that they may not know it, it's a different issue, it's a notice. The notices of some of these bigger projects with big effects really do need to go out in all the languages. And that's a cost that can be borne by the developer and the people that are doing the project, not necessarily always the city. But that is how we drive engagement, because you can't comment on something that you don't know about or that you can't understand. So that is something we do need to have a better form of engagement, which I think the staff should, figure out, what do we do? I mean, there's got to be a solution to that, because we have a pretty good section of the community that may not even know there's a project coming in until it's too late.
you.
Excuse me, Mayor, let me just have some clarification from what Vice Mayor Harrington said. I thought the notices were going to be translated. The issue tonight is the agendas. Did I misunderstand the reports?
Correct. There must be a misunderstanding. So right now, we're not translating any of those notices unless we have direction from council. And then if we do have direction from council, the direction I would ask is whether we pass that cost along to the developers for those public hearing notices, or whether we absorb that cost. But right now, the proposal was to just do the boilerplate text that doesn't change with the project. That's not the proposal, excuse me, that's what the
Okay.
recommendation was. But staff is
Okay,
happy
so
to
then
do that.
since it's been mentioned by Councilmember Wu and Vice Mayor Harrington, I do agree that the notices should be translated. But tonight, we're just talking about the agendas. So another agenda item, or maybe later down the road, we can discuss more if necessary. But I do agree on the notices. Thank you.
Okay. So I want to conclusion. It's just talking about the agenda, or it's talking about the notification, public hearing notification we discussed today?
Both.
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 Okay. So if like this, we want, when we did make it, the decision, want to do like 2021, we from here commission, and the council, the translation. So that's the purpose. It's a more community engagement, especially they have the language barrier, so it's help them. But right now the analysis looks like but my community's the feedback, they still, when I talk to them, they really appreciate the city have provided this kind of service. And but the service also costs the public money too, right? So, but sometimes we need to compare. It's really helped the community, so we have to balance that. Okay, and for the agenda, I hear about some neighborhood city have some short publication translate different language. I think this city just translate the Chinese language. Say today's agenda. If you have anything, you can call the city. That's another option. If we want to, for the rest of the agenda, we want to save the cost for the city. I don't know, the city manager have to hear about it, that it's like a very short, it's today's agenda. They have English version and the Chinese version. I saw they have Spanish version too. So anything regarding today's the agenda called City Clerk, to clarify, City Clerk will be provided some language to translate to today's agenda. It's a little bit complicated. It's a little bit inconvenient. They cannot read it, but maybe it's help a little bit for the regular agenda. But a public hearing notice, I think, is definitely I want, for my opinion, also need all the different language to to remind the people to, yeah, that's very important one, okay. The problem is, you know, we not, actually, I don't want to use the specified the situation, but you never know, for the future, it's a different situation, it's happen, the people, I actually, not just for the focus part, okay, even for the previous something, they say, hey, this public hearing, I don't know, I don't, right, so that's the, I think translate this language purpose is how can we, our city to outreach the community to know that, to know that this public hearing is very important, it's affect your daily life. So that's, I think, language translation is part of that. But for the, like the council member would mention, how can we put on newspaper, social media, whatever the tool we can use to like a public engagement. So yeah, so anyways, all it's like Council Member Menchaca also mentioned. So maybe either our city, our council member make a decision, or we still can let the Hill Commission they more discussion about that to then have the report come back. That's also this another option to do that too.
Absolutely. If that's the desire of the council, we can put together some recommendations with the help of our public outreach team, and we can do some more research as to what other cities do. And then we could bring an item to the HERE Commission and have that discussion, and then have them provide a recommendation to council. And to answer your question, Mayor, about whether I've seen other cities that put short bullets on top of their translations on top of their agendas, several cities do that. The cities that I have seen do that, the language doesn't change with the agenda, meaning it's the same text every time. It's, here's our agenda for such and such a night, and if you have questions, and it's in several languages. And we can do that very easily on all of our agendas for all of the commissions. We can start doing that now if that's what the council desires. We can do that in Chinese, Vietnamese, Spanish, and English, and then have them contact the city for questions on those. That doesn't take much effort on our part to do that, and that's something we can easily do. The question is the actual translation of the words that change with every meeting, and I'm hearing that the council is wanting to do that potentially for public hearing notices for projects, for development projects. But to answer your second question, yes, we can put together something for the HERE Commission to consider if that's what the council desires.
Okay. Okay, Councilmember Wu.
Thank you, Mayor Dean. So today we are not making a decision. So we are discussing, but one thing I would just want to, it just reminds me that the public warfares, for example, I have seen those letters before that they have, every time they send out the mail, they have one piece of paper that flip both sides, they print both sides with all different languages, Chinese, Spanish, Korean, Japanese, Arabic, all the language on one paper, two-sided, and just telling people, if you read this language and you need help on translation, then you can call this number. So perhaps that is another solution, but I just want to make sure that the people, when they receive a notice or letter from the city, they know this is something is related to, related to them. They won't toss that, throw it away, because they don't recognize that is something about the city and about the decision will be affecting their life. So I think it's important for everyone that speak in different language. They may not understand English good enough, but they also have the right to know what's going on in our city. So I think that this is something, if this is something we can do, I mean, I hope that we can maintain whatever we have for both two commissions, the HERE Commission and another one.
And the council.
Yes, and council. Then we will talk about more, maybe the public, what is that? I'm sorry, the design review and planning. So we can talk about that later.
Yeah, okay, so Actually, from I understand it, for the federal, because my career, the insurance career, federal, state, county, they really put on the different language. Even their English version, they put on like a small notes, say, okay, with different language, you can call this phone number, they provide a service. That's one thing. Another thing is, any, like a resident, if you want to receive this letter, you can request that you want English, Spanish, Chinese, or Vietnamese, or different language. The federal, state, county, I think they have enough the fund to do that. So our city, I think it's like the vice mayor mentioned, we use maybe if we're cost effective, maybe our city website can provide this kind of Google Translate to direct to them to see the different. Yeah, maybe accuracy is not really good, but we can put on notes. Say if you want a more accurate, you can call the city clerk or city to more explanation. If I talking about if the future, if we have enough fund, maybe we can think about it. And I think that for future, it's this kind of translations should be more accurate, more easy to. If AI, it's more right now. It's more Google Translator. When I remember when I started, maybe just 50% accuracy. Right now, it's almost 90%. So it's pretty good too. So maybe we can. Another choice for the rest of the agenda, if software can allow us to let people click link to direct to the whatever language they want to translate. That's maybe can we let our IT department to find out. Yeah. So we don't want to. I don't want to waste this kind of resource, right? That's the current high technology, so we probably can use that. Yeah, if you hire the professional people translated that's really cost money too. Yeah.
If I may,
Yeah.
I would like to make one more comment. So when we are talking about the phone number that those people who doesn't speak English or they prefer to have their mother tongue to be translated, then who will be answering the phone? That means we will need our staff to do another research that if there will be any financial impact for those staff. The staff time also costs money. And I know that in our city, we have people speak Mandarin, Cantonese, and we have the numbers, how many people they speak the Spanish too. But who will be answering the phone? And would that create more job load? There'll be like a quite heavy loaded job for them to answer the phones and translate each words or something. So I perhaps we need to consider before we send out a notice or we approve to print out those like a piece of paper telling them what number they can call for the translation assistance. We will need from our end to have someone is ready to answer those questions.
And I appreciate, Councilman Wu, you making that distinction, because we cannot quickly translate documents into other languages. So if the expectation is that somebody could call for a staff report and say, I'd like that translated into another language, that's not going to be realistic for us to do. What is realistic is if somebody has a question in several of the languages that are common, we have people in departments that can get back to that person and be able to answer those questions, which is quite a bit different than translating a document, especially a written document. I'm confident that within a day's notice, we can have somebody in several languages, and more than just the 4 that we use right now. It's going to be unrealistic, though, to promise to the public that we can do it in languages that aren't very common. They can use our website and use Google Translate, and as the mayor said, they'll be able to get 90% of the understanding of it, and then unfortunately, they would have to work with a friend or a family member to figure out the rest. But I think we are doing better than other cities, and we'll continue to do better to try to communicate with our folks. And I'm happy to have the extra input to see how we can do that better. But I don't want to set a false hope that somebody can call in Farsi and that we can, for example, answer the phone and communicate with them. We have language lines for emergency situations. Our PD can call, very quickly with somebody who is having an emergency, and we have AT&T and other services that do that. But for something like a development project, that's going to be unrealistic. So I don't want to set that.
Thank you, Mark.
expectation.
So I just have this in mind, okay, because I mentioned the federal, state, and the county, they have some budget to help the language translation. But I think they should be encouraging our city. It's already a pioneer, right? Like Mike say, so we have the translation for the different language. Is it we can maybe, hopefully staff can a little bit research, how can we asking the county, state, and the federal, maybe they have special some grant to help us to this kind of the kind of things for our community. If we get this kind of grant, we can specify to use this kind of service to provide more service for our community. Yeah. That's I currently just have some mind to have a suggestion too. And yeah, so any like a proposal and or the direction summarize. So right now, just do, okay, go ahead.
I mean, I'm not going
Vice
to
Mayor,
make a motion yet, but I think consensus here is to go to option 2 and then figure out, have staff come back with some ideas. And hopefully Mark has enough notes so we don't have to list every idea.
Yeah,
We can
okay,
just say we'd like to,
okay,
go out- so if everyone, no more discussion, I'd like to make that motion that we adopt option 2, the understanding that staff will come back with some other ideas in the future about how to engage the community and how to perform translation.
I'll second.
okay, so motion made by the Vice Mayor Harrington, second by the Councilmember Menchaca. So it's Chief City Clerk. So let me see. So we still need a vote, right? Clerk, please take the roll call vote.
Councilmember Chan,
Yes.
Councilmember Menchaca, Councilmember Wu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Next item, please.
Discussion regarding the street name change guidelines. Community Development Director Cervantes will make the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. At the May 3rd, 2022 City Council meeting, the City Council directed staff to draft guidelines to address future street name change requests. In addition, the City Council directed staff to present the draft guidelines to the HERE Commission, the Planning Commission, and the Historic Preservation and Cultural Resources Commission. At the September 14th, 2022 Historic Preservation and Cultural Resources Commission meeting, the Commission felt that the guidelines were adequate, but expressed some concerns about the processing fee and the use of specific language within the guidelines. In addition, the Commission also looked or requested to define a legacy business and incorporate that definition into the guidelines. For your reference and to address those comments, Section 4.1 and Section 4.2 of the guidelines provide a method for the selection of new street names. Section 4.2 of the guidelines also provide a detailed list of qualifying factors for the selection of these street names, and most of it is based off historic significance or geographic significance. In addition, the guidelines now include the definition of a legacy business. At the September 27th, 2022 HERE Commission meeting, the Commission expressed similar concerns about the fee, but also provided recommendations as to various sections of the guidelines. They expressed a desire to have the HERE Commission act as a prerequisite or pre-application review process before it reaches the next step, which can be Planning Commission, Historic Preservation Commission, or even the City Council. At the November 14th Planning Commission meeting, they also agreed that these applications should be presented to the HERE Commission as well as the Historic Preservation Commission before proceeding to a City Council for final vote. The fee was also discussed at the Planning Commission as well, with the concern that the fee was just too little. With regards to this fee, the fee that is listed in the staff report is intended to act as a cost recovery for staff time in processing an application. The deposit that is listed there for $1,000 will be used for materials and supplies, i.e. purchasing of the signage that is to replace the existing sign that's on the street. Fees cannot be imposed to deter an applicant, and such fees cannot be beyond the cost for recovery of staff time. In terms of the review process, staff does recommend that the guidelines be amended to include a pre-application review process before the HERE Commission, as well as the Historic Preservation Commission. Both commissions will act as an advisory group to the City Council and provide recommendations or conditions to the application. The council may also elect to include the Planning Commission in terms of that process, so we could certainly involve the HERE Commission, Planning Commission, and the Historic Preservation Commission. It's up to the wishes of the City Council. The final stage with this entire process does include a final action before the City Council via an ordinance. At that meeting, the City Council can take on those recommendations or conditions of the various commissions. So with that said, staff recommends the City Council discuss the matter and provide comments and direction regarding the guidelines, as well as direct staff to include the HERE Commission as well as the Historic Preservation Commission into the guidelines as it relates to the process for reviewing an application. So with that said, I open for questions.
Does any council member have the factual question for the staff to clarify the report?
I do, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Menchaca.
Aldo,
Yeah.
I notice there's no appeal process. Can you explain why there's not an appeal process? It looks like we just go through each of the commissions and then council has the ultimate decision.
Yeah, in a sort of a legal process, I would say, the changing of a street name only includes the adoption of an ordinance by the City Council. Given that the action of the City Council given that the action doesn't require, let's say, for example, a Planning Commission action, which is discretionary, in that process, it does allow for the public to appeal that decision. In the recommendation of the staff, we're looking at the Planning Commission, HERE Commission, or Historic Preservation Commission as advisory bodies. So their decisions are mainly recommendations to the City Council and not subject to an appeal of anyone in the public, given that they're really just providing recommendations or even conditions that the council may consider upon their final action. We're now looking at a similar situation as a Planning Commission reviewing a discretionary project like a conditional use permit or a variance, which can be appealed. That's a completely different process than what is being considered
Okay,
tonight.
thank you. And then who determines, who in the historical resources, but I just wanted to confirm, who determined that 20 years was the number for a business to be considered a legacy business? It doesn't sound like a long time, 20 years, but who made that determination?
There was a variety of years that were thrown out at that meeting. There was 50 years, 20 years. I think we all kind of settled on 20 years. That can certainly be a staff recommendation as we've deep dived into research on legacy businesses and looking for definitions from other sources. I think the common year that is used is 20 years, but we can certainly look at that number and adjust it to 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. It can be a moving target if the council wishes.
But so was that determined by the historical commission, or that was strictly staff?
No, well, the Historic Preservation Commission looked at assigning a year. There wasn't any specific year that was assigned. And so in our case, in our research by staff, we determined that 20 years would be an adequate length of
Okay,
time.
will that be taken back to the Historical Resource Commission at some point? Because I like to hear their, definition, because 20 just doesn't sound like a long time for me.
Yes, certainly, if the council wishes to go back to the HERE Commission and have them address that specific item, we can certainly
Okay,
do that.
thank you. I have more questions after deliberation, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wu.
Aldo, thank you so much for another presentation again. My question is, does your guideline, the attachment A, the draft guidelines, that indicates anywhere that we will limit it for our power, for the applicant to change the street names because there are too many residents there and will be affected? If anyone who has, they live there for like 20 years, then they have to change the DMV driver license because their address will be changed to a new street name. Would that be an issue? Because I know Hinhuali is not this kind of things.
Right.
They will just change that for the name, but they're not, any resident will be impacted for their name change application. And second question is, I do see that when you say legacy business, when we say, we have seen SCE Drive, we have seen the Disney, and even Home Depot or Walmart. So those street, do you define that as a street? Or those are just like a symbol or a sign, but it doesn't really create or trigger what you have mentioned in the draft guidelines?
Well, in those specific cases, like the Walmart or the Home Depot, those are likely assigned names because of new development that is assigned by the actual city itself. And yes, they are considered public right-of-way or streets. I wouldn't consider that to be a legacy business because it's part of a development project that is fairly new. I would say if we're on the topic of Hinghwa Li, for example, we've discussed the history of that family, and that can certainly be a situation or a qualifier saying, look, they've been in the city for 20 years, and given that qualifier, they can certainly apply for the application. But so I hope that answers that question. The first question, of course, is related to the residents along the street. So Section 6.2 addresses a requirement that at least 50% of the residents within that street must approve the street name change in order for us to consider the application.
Okay, thank you.
Can I follow up on that? Because it does say residents or property assessed owners. There's a big difference between residents and assessed owners. For example, there could be an apartment building with 200 residents and one assessed owner. Like who decides that? The 200 people in the apartment or the one person that owns the property?
And I would leave that up to council to determine which is the most relevant to leave in the guidelines. As far as I'm concerned, I would rather go with the 200 residents rather than the one owner of the property. That's my professional opinion.
My only reasoning is because it's internally in conflict then, because you should make a decision in the process itself, because we've already led ourselves to a conflict. So we should define that in the policy.
So that's meaning either owner.
Yeah, so for example, let's say you're on Live Oak, a lot of apartments. What if one of the persons that owns a few of the apartments, let's say they own enough to be 50% of the owner of that street, so it's a small street offside, and none of the residents want their street name changed, but the owner owns, like, say there's 6 lots and he owns 4 of them. They could change the name of the street, even though no one on the street wants it named. So we need to have a policy that says one or the other. It shouldn't be both, so. The problem I see, though, is like if you have that situation, it's much easier for one person to vote than for 200, because it would fail just because you couldn't get 200 people to sign on to anything ever.
So that's good. The question too. So based on resident, based on the owner. So, okay. City Clerk, have any public comment?
No comments on this item, Mayor.
Okay, it's now time for the council discussion. Who would like to start it? I think Councilmember Menchaca say you have the discussion.
I do. I can start. Thank you. I wanted to just get clarification. It's getting a little confusing here. What Vice Mayor Harrington just mentioned, is that something we need to decide tonight, City Manager or Aldo? Do we need to put that in the motion, or are we, I just needed clarification.
Well, we can certainly go back and discuss this internally, but as far as, it's a great question, and I do think that we need to sort of define what that means in terms of using assessed property owner or resident. If I were to make a decision tonight, based off my opinion, I would decide to say resident rather than property owner, given the circumstances. But we have to look at or dive into all the scenarios for any of our streets. We're not looking at all single-family blocks. We're looking at, residential areas that have multifamily. So I think that we can go back and look at that and see how we could define
Okay,
it better.
because I do agree with Vice Mayor that we do need clarity. And so I would like to ask the council, that staff bring that back. Regarding the advisory commissions, I would assume that historical and here commission would hear it first, and then it would migrate to planning. But what happens if, let's say historical say no, here says yes, planning says no? It still comes to the council, right? There's nothing that's going to stop the applicant from continuing on with the process. It's got to get to council. Council has the ultimate decision. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause this is definitely an endeavor that should not be taken lightly. And so I would like to have all 3 of those advisory commissions involved, because it is an important, it hasn't happened yet. I don't believe we've had any street changes, but if we are going to have any, I think the more commissions, more eyes on it, the better it is for council to make that ultimate decision. I wanted to also ask, let's see, there was a comment in the report that there could be possibly later down the road recommendations by maybe the Historical Commission or the HERE Commission on street name changes. And if that was the case, how would the fee be handled? Because if it's coming from a commission, then that's very different from an applicant. Do we have any in the policy or the guidelines we have right now to account for it? Because I know there was some discussion about the fee was too high or too low, but if it's coming from a commission, how would that be managed?
Yeah, and I think that internally we discussed this, and I think the best approach, and we can work this into the guidelines, is to waive the fee if the application is submitted by a fellow commission. And so that we can work into, if the council sees fit, we can work that into the guidelines to waive the fee in that circumstance.
Okay, I agree with that. Okay, thank you. Yeah, hopefully my colleagues also agree. And then, let's see, the notification process, there is a section in the guidelines. I wanted to try to understand, how would the public know about it? Because, we've talked about the agendas, noticing the agendas, giving out notices to residents who are in the area. But again, it's a street change name, and I know that it's important to a lot of people. But how do we plan to do that type of notification? Is it going to be same as always, or are we going to do something extra because it is a street name change?
I think in this circumstance, we would look at notifying the neighbors as we do for any project. We provide a radius, but in addition to that, we would provide a notice to those residents who would be impacted by the change. And so if we're looking at a single block that will be impacted, every single resident, tenant, property owner will be notified as they're the most impacted.
I guess I'm coming from the perspective that any street name change has an impact that goes beyond just the neighbors. For example, I'm thinking of the Historical Commission, maybe some of our other, not Historical Commission, I'm sorry, the Historical Society. I think they would be interested. Even maybe our indigenous groups here might be interested. It just has, the impact is much greater than just the residents. And so I was just trying to, I don't have an answer. I'm just in my mind kind of thinking it through. I was looking at the people who come to the meetings before. They've been very involved with a whole host of groups, whether it's the Kiwanis or the Elks Lodge or, like I said, the Historical Association. Would there be any consideration in giving them a notice also? Because even though it's one street, it really has an impact throughout the city.
And that can certainly be something we can add to the guidelines specifically. In section 8.2 of the guidelines, it does leave that up to the applicant to notify non-government agencies or organizations. But if the council sees fit, we as a city can take on that task and notify agencies and organizations in the city. Outside of that, the residents.
Okay, I would like to see that. But I think it's just, we're a small community. But what takes place, whether it's north, south, east, or west, really does have an impact on the whole city. And I'd like to see a greater outreach on the city's part to let everyone know. So there's no surprises. This is taking place. We have lines. We've gone through several commissions. We're not taking this lightly. And so people feel that, they've been taken into account. It's part of the civic engagement that we keep talking about. I think this would be a very important one. Not that it's taking place a lot, often, but when it does, I think, it behooves us as a city, as a council, to make it wide and, try to reach as many people as we can if this moment does come, whether it's from an applicant, a business, or a commission. And so for tonight, can I just again get clarification? What exactly did you want from council? The motion to approve the guidelines as is, or are you going to bring it back with some suggestions we may have? Can you help us?
Yeah, and given the feedback that we're receiving from council, I think it's going to be prudent that we come back and have another discussion and to address the questions and comments of the council. So at this point, we're looking to receive direction and comments, and then we will likely return with another discussion.
Okay, well then hopefully someone's taking notes promptly, because I know my colleagues will probably have quite a few questions too. So for me, it would be also, if you could add, I've mentioned it before, but I'm going to add it one more time, the legacy business, if that could be taken to our Historical Resource Commission for them to define it, or at least make a recommendation of what the definition should be. I would like to add that also. One more time. That was all. Thank you, Aldo. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Chen?
In light of the discussion we've had so far, which I think is important and good, I would agree. I do see that there are certain things that need to get ironed out in the current language. And so, I would be agreeable to providing guidance to the staff based on what we talked about and bringing bringing back a more tight draft at a future time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman, the Vice Mayor Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the effort to get this out there, although it's a lot to take on, so thank you. I think I have a little different take than Councilmember Menchaca. This is a council decision. I don't want to create some big bureaucracy around something that happens once every decade. I think they are going to be one-offs. They're not going to be things that happen often. I really think that if we want the commissions involved, we don't need to go from 3 months to 6 months or however long extra it'll take. I really think if the commissions, if we keep it tight into 3 months, and the commissions are advisory, I don't think they need to, I think they could do it in writing. We can get a memo from each commission that would care to send it to the council, and they could have any concerns with the proposed name change. It's not going to be something where you're drafting volumes. If it doesn't meet any of the standards, they can say why in a memo. And it can be in writing, and there doesn't need to be discussion. The commissions can, I don't think an applicant should have to go in front of the commission, 3 commissions, and then the council. You want to talk about creating bureaucracy, that's how you do it. Get this stamp, and then that stamp, and then that stamp, and then that stamp, and then in the end, the commission can say no, or the council can say no. I think it would be a very easy and streamlined process to have the application, and then if there's an attachment from a commission that says yes or no, like they agree, or any conditions they'd like the council to consider, that's fine. But I think we're creating so much bureaucracy around this, it's getting to be at the point of ridiculousness. We're making kind of a comical, like, this is what government does. We need to rethink that. It's, okay, we have this well thought out so far, it's a pretty well baked and well thought out requirements, so that's a pretty good filter to start. And then in that filter, we have a lot of eyes on it because we can have 3 commissions say it meets it or doesn't meet it, and that can be something they do without having to have the applicant go in front of them, and it can be easy to schedule within a 3-month period. So I really think, yes, the commissions can be advisory, but I don't want to put the applicant in front of 3 commissions. I would think they should just come in front of the council, and then we have guidance from the commission, just like a staff report. Here's what the Historic Preservation Commission said. Here's what your commission said. Here's what planning said. If they may have no comments, they may have great comments, they may have negative comments, they may have conditions. That's ultimately the council has to agree and write the ordinance. So I really think that would be a smoother, less bureaucratic process where it's more like the advisory is truly advisory and you're not making someone go in front of 3 commissions and then the council.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay. So, yes, so I want to also still want to it's also clarify or to discuss if goes through all the 3 commission, even our city council agree, but I see the 6.2 have 50%, no matter the owner or resident. That's they have to get the 50% the signature first, or that's what's the procedure? And by the way, if a resident you didn't, did you want to include a business owner? Maybe it's not a resident, right? It's they on the street, they have the business, and the owner, maybe a whole building is owned by one owner, and the rest of the rent out to the business. So, yeah, so that's the definition also need to clarify too, not just a resident, right?
That's correct. And in order to answer some of the questions, in order to consider the application from staff to begin with, we have to have 50% of those residents approving the name change. Otherwise, we don't accept the application.
So that's the first step.
That's the first step.
Okay.
And so with relation to the notification process, section 6.2 does address business owner as well. And so we can certainly go back and clarify and make that, stand out more as far as making sure that they're part of the process.
Okay.
Yeah, Tony, that's why I was saying the filter just to get the application in front of them is very high. They'd have to already have all those signatures. So that means they have general local community support before they ever got to any commission. So
Okay.
you're probably not going to get some really strange, awkward, and whatever names are in the, you're not going to get something. It would be hard to get unless the whole community is trolling the council.
Yeah, okay. So I think that, so if direction is very clear, just first of all got the 50%, the signature. Otherwise, it's a waste time, right? They go to the here commission or the historical. Yeah, I also agree. The Vice Mayor Harrington say these two commission. I think that we just listen. They just for the suggestion, not to make a decision. It's accept or deny, right? They just do the help us to the research, so it's a proper way to the name change. Then, if even I think maybe just in case they all agree or no comments, or even they say don't agree, but still can come back to our council to make a final decision. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. So planning, it's still need to make a decision to, planning commission, it's need to approve. That's, they first of all need to approve too, right? It's not just a suggestion only. Is that correct too?
No, that's not correct. It would be just a recommendation.
Also recommendation.
Right.
So this is 3 commission, it's a recommendation. Then back to the council to make a decision, no matter they are what kind of decision.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that maybe that's a proper way to do that. Okay. So is for this direction, so we have any motion or recommendation?
No, at this point, I think we have enough direction from council that we can bring back a revised policy. We'll bring it back redlined so you can see the difference between what you read today and the changes that we put in. And then at that point, we would need a vote from council to make
Okay.
it the official policy.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. And the next item, please.
We have no additional public comment, Mayor.
Okay. City manager report.
I have nothing today, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And the council comments and the conference meeting report. Councilmember Wu.
Thank you, Mayor Dean. Well, I just want to share that Mayor Dean and I attended the Lunar New Year celebrations in Mission District last Saturday, February 4th. Well, the event is very successful, that I got a very positive feedback from our community. So in the grand opening that we have Congresswoman Chu, we have Senator Rubio, Assembly Member Fong, representative from the Supervisor Solis office, and other elected officials from our neighbor city. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank our city staff and Chief Nakamoto from our police department, and also Chief Wallace from our fire department, and also the officers, firefighters. We had a lot of people, our officers that patrol, even undercover, so that makes our visitors, the people, residents, citizens, they feel safe during the event. And this time we had a partner with the KZN 1300 radio station. I think it would be great to ask our partner if they will be our partner again next year for this event, that we can find out the best way to get our local business to be benefited from our event, and especially for those vendors that selling similar items with our local businesses. And the booth should be assigned in a good distance, so we can prevent like a crowding out circumstance. That's my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wu. Councilmember Chen.
Yes, I've got a few things to report. On Monday, January 23rd, and Tuesday, January 24th, I did attend a couple candlelight vigils for the Monterey Park tragedy, and I went to offer my support and the support of San Gabriel to our neighbors in Monterey Park. And so I think the events went well and they were well attended, and just wanted to make sure that our neighbors in Monterey Park know that we are here to help if we can. Next item is I did attend the ICA conference, that's Independent Cities Association, and it was a very good, good conference, and I attended some really good, helpful classes. There was a class specifically for newly elected council members as a training class, and I picked up some very helpful procedural information and advice on how to keep us out of legal trouble. So it's always a good thing. I attended another class at the same conference on effective communication with the public during a crisis. And again, that kind of stuff is important, that our city leaders and city staff are able to communicate with our residents, God forbid if something bad were to happen, and just so that we can make sure that our residents have the most up-to-date and accurate information and clear information so that they feel informed. And let's see. Oh, another one of the classes was on legal liability, and they talked about logistical things like proper infrastructure and maintenance, and sidewalks being paved correctly so that to minimize on anyone getting injured on our city property. And the last thing that I found of note was I did attend the legally required class on sexual harassment prevention training. So I fulfilled my requirements and made sure that was taken care of properly. That's about it, so I yield my time.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor.
I have some comments too, Mayor, but I can go after the Vice Mayor.
Okay, all right. Okay. Vice Mayor say the council member.
Oh,
may
okay.
check out first.
Thank you. I wanted to remind everyone that there is an art exhibit in celebrating Black History Month at Blossom Market Hall upstairs. It's called In Living Color, and it features 2 artists, and it's being sponsored by Dr. Chastity Jennings Nunez, and it's there for the full month of February. So if everyone, it's free to attend, so please go and look at the artwork. I also attended the vigil for the Monterey Park victims. There was one at the Monterey Park City Hall that I also attended, and one at Church of Our Savior. And again, our hearts to the victims and to the survivors. And I'm glad that the city continues to stand next to our neighbors. Along those lines, for those who are not aware, one of the survivors, his name, he was part of our police department. He's retired San Gabriel Police Lieutenant Jim Goodman. He was a hero that day also. He has a long recovery ahead of him because he did suffer significant injuries. He was a hero when he was here as a police officer, and also that fateful day because he protected his dance partner from the shooter. There is a GoFundMe account for him, and so please go online, and the title is Monterey Park Mass Shooting Hero, Jim Goodman. And so monies are still being collected for him. And that's all I have for now, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. I do regret that I was not able to go to the Lunar New Year. You can't be in 2 places at once, and I went along with Councilmember Chen to the Independent Cities. I'm on the board there, so I kind of almost obligated to go, but not 100%. I would say the conference, the winter session always focuses on safety. It really focuses on safety. I think I'm going to be, just so the council knows, I'm going to be tasked with presenting one of the panels in the summer session. So mark your calendars. It's right now, we have it scheduled for July, I think 13th through, I forget the date. That's tentative because we might move it a week, simply because there's a major conference the week before for the NALO, National Elected Latino Officials, which they would just be getting back from Washington DC and then have to turn right around and go to ICA, so it'd be a very long 2 weeks. So we might push it a week further, so it might be the 20th. But I've spoken to Mark. It's really nice when we can highlight our city on the panel. So I had some brainstorming to do a bunch of short 10 to 15-minute presentations about some innovation that San Gabriel has done and kind of try and highlight our city. So hopefully I can get some help from staff and maybe fellow council members. I have a few different ideas, and Mark will be reaching out to everybody that may want to be involved. We did have Sheriff Luna as the keynote speaker. Very well attended. That was the one where I think everybody in the hotel was there. It was standing room only. Supervisor Hahn introduced him and gave a good introduction. He went over a lot of what the changes. He's made a lot of changes very quickly in the Sheriff's Department, and it affects us. I mean, we don't, we have our own PD, so we don't necessarily always think that we're affected by it, but he reflected on the Monterey Park stuff right away. You know, he was front and center on that and how the Sheriff's Department helped Monterey Park PD and the way they were able to cooperate. And it was timely because, like Eric said, we were talking about, we had a few things that actually were topics that went right into that. We had elected official training, so they trained us. You got to go on camera for communicating on events, and that was very valuable. They put you on camera with a professional reporter. I mean, a local KTLA reporter was interviewing you with real questions. So you get a scenario, and you're on the big screen in front of everybody, so it's just like being real live. You get the nerves and everything, and they critique, you know, you get to do it more than once. So they critique you as you go through, and it's great media training. So I think that's something we did that in San Gabriel, actually with that same trainer maybe 10 years ago. I think it's something the entire council can benefit from. You know, when you never know when you're going to be on the spot for a media interview, and it's really good training. I think it's valuable. Like Eric said, and this is kind of how I want to model anything we do. They had almost like a shotgun approach. They did sidewalks, e-bikes, potential water problems, like even though the city, San Gabriel doesn't handle any water, we can still be sued over contaminants and things that may enter the water system. Guns, there was gun confiscation, and how the different cities have different gun confiscations when guns are used in crimes or red flag laws and different things. So I would like to have a bunch of, 10, 15-minute presentations instead of like a long, because sometimes an hour, but you don't keep people's attention. And if it changes over, the other idea that I brought to the ICA was, rather than some of these really long presentations, get a whole bunch of subject matter experts and have real nice breakouts of 5 or 10 people in each group. So you could have, this one could be about streets, this one could be about safety, this one could be about, and you have like a few city council members, a few staff, a few subject matter experts. And that way you can go to the topics that really interest you in that same period and not, like there were a few topics that honestly could have been cut in half, but because they're trying to fill that hour, they I think, and I'm really soliciting ideas from staff and from what council would like to know, what would you like to be educated on. But overall, the conference once again was very informative, very engaging, and it's a great way to see what other cities are doing and how we can make ourselves better by doing some of the things they do and not doing some of the things they do. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. I remember a couple months ago, we have 5 council members with our city manager attend the ICA conference. It's really help for this kind of education. But this year, because I'm glad Vice Mayor Harrington and Council Member Chen attended this conference. Me and Council Member Wu have a chance to attend our city event, Lunar New Year Festival. It's really, this last Saturday, it's really successful. And I hear from the vendor and attendee, they gave me the feedback and say it's everything is better than, I don't want to say that, but better than somewhere else, the festival. So our city is really successful. Okay, so I don't want a neighborhood city jealous, okay, to us. Okay. Yeah, I think they give me the feedback, so I just really did not, I saw it, okay. Yeah. It's a really happy way after 3 years, the pandemic, the first year in person, and also it's definitely thanks our police, fire, and public worker, community service, and city staff do their wonderful job to prepare and cooperate with the KAZN, the radio station. They do a lot of like the outreach for especially for the Chinese community. So I also have given to them, because the organizer gave me the assignment for the tour for our historical city, and a tour, and one is on the noon time, and another one is on the 2 o'clock. And usually I think I walk, if I don't explain anything, I think just like a half hour can do it, but actually I think average I do the 1 hour and 20 minutes to give it to some, like a resident. It's Chinese speaking the resident, because I use the most the Mandarin to the tour guide. But I'm glad I have the church brother and do the translation for the English. So it's same time. But I talking about the resident, the Chinese American. They say they're living the San Gabriel City like maybe 18 years, 20 years. They still don't know its history for our city. After this tour, they say, very proud of our San Gabriel, city of San Gabriel. It's a really long history and a good history, and they more feel it's more proud of. It's a part of the community. Yeah, so I hope next year we have the more better turnout, and more people can, and also thanks our federal, state, and the county to support, and the neighborhood. We also have the neighborhood the council member and the school board. Okay, they too support it too, and then also I have chance to attend the visual memory in the Murray Park. It's in they have allow people to go neighborhood city to support them, and I'm glad in our city, Church of Savior, have this kind of memory for them. I have chance to attend it. So they show our city of San Gabriel. It's really support our sister city, the Murray Park. So we are community. It's not every city looks like a small community, but we have to get together to support each other. Okay, and I also have chance to attend that's led by the mayor of the Temple City, Cynthia Stigwin, for the mayor roundtable, the discussion. So because we are, they are contract city, we are independent city, but we are neighborhood, we are whole community. So that time, even I also have a chance to talk to our chief, and our former chief also attended this meeting, our city manager there too. So I have some idea, suggestion. So is it possible our city, it's connect our neighborhood city around that? It's similar to our, the fire department have the Verdogo, right? The system. So we can share the resource, share the information to prevent this kind of Murray Park things happen too. Or not just the Murray Park things, maybe something like recently our city, I hear about a lot of the window breaking for the car, and the inside the purse, take off that. Okay, some people, it's a follower people. I hear about one incident, it's because they go to the bank, they follow them. They go to the restaurant, they put on purse on the sides. The people get in quickly, take off their purse, and live away. That's happened in our city. So I'm really embarrassed because, you know why? I already talked to our community. We are a safety city this year is a good report, but these things, the things just wonder like for the future protection. I know that from the chief they are doing a good job, okay, but sometimes with small communities still not enough to have the information to exchange each other, right, chief, right? Okay, so yeah, hopefully if we have this kind of system can share the information together to let our community more safety, the place to live in. Okay, yeah, that's my report. Okay, closing section, no, none. Okay, I used before the meeting adjourned, so I try to take this opportunity to memory of the 11 people who tragedy lost their life in the Murray Park. We pray for them and then pray for their family. And we are same community. We need to support each other, to help each other, especially to their family to recover this kind of tragedy. So, yeah, okay. Next regular city council meeting will be held on Tuesday, February 21st, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Meeting adjourned at 8:44 p.m.